Was there anything that was difficult during your entire time? Anything that you found that you had to deal with?
N- Not in a sense that it would cause me to stop and think, why did I become a priest? But
Mhm.
certainly the scandals of what's happened to some priest of abuse and so forth, that's embarrassing and it's not uplifting for anybody. And not so much that it happened, it's terrible that it happened, but
Uh-huh.
having to have to respond to other people, why did that happen when no one really knows what happened? And it's kind of like, you know, you're a priest. Why do, you're supposed to live an exemplary life. Why did
Yes.
this happen? Well, I don't know why it happened. So I don't have a real good explanation to people. But I mean, that's a difficulty, but it's not something that caused me to.
How do you deal with that, hearing those stories?
Well, I know some of the guys, and you
That must
know,
make it even more difficult.
even more difficult. And you certainly pray for them. I have their names. I wrote the names in my liturgy of hours book, our prayer book that we as priests have, and
Uh-huh.
so it's I got a sheet of paper there where I pray for them,
Uh-huh.
and some of them are deceased now that did that. I um, I scratch my head and wonder what happened. How did they do this? And certainly I pray for victims because I've also had to deal with victims
Uh-huh.
in a parish where someone came to me and said they were, abused
Wow.
by a priest. And so that's not an easy thing to do.
Does it really hurt you when you hear
Oh,
these?
sure. It causes a lot of pain because you can't really give an adequate explanation to someone who's hurting, and they have to live as a victim. They have to live with that pain for the rest of their lives.
Yes.
Um, and why did that happen? And I don't have a good explanation other than it did. And you try to listen carefully to in their story and try to provide as much understanding and support to them. But yeah, there's no good or easy way to respond to that.
I can't imagine how difficult it must be
Mhm.
for you, especially since you said you knew some of these
Mhm.
priests. Did you have any clues or anything like that? Or
For the ones that I didn't deal with in the seminary, very little clues.
uh-huh.
Maybe a few hints here and there.
That you wouldn't think about when it happened.
Right. And looking back, said, okay, now that probably was what was happening. One in particular that went through our seminary, I had questions about his thing. In fact, I did ask him to leave the seminary, and he went to another seminary
Oh, wow.
and was ordained. So, yeah, in fact, that I have a lot of information. I know, but it was nothing. What I know that happened with him when he was in our seminary had nothing to do with abuse of minors, but that's kind of where it led. But I never witnessed that. So,
Do you find it hard being a priest when these things come out?
oh, yes. I mean, it's not easy to hear that, and it's not easy to have that in the news. You know, I would compare it to a policeman, a policeman who's accused of shooting someone simply because they were disorderly, or in their opinion, they were disorderly, then the public would see this as is, callousness and just, shooting somebody without justification. And I know a lot of policemen, you know,
Uh-huh.
so they have to bear the same burden when they wear that uniform
Yes.
and go out and serve the public, and someone's kind of questioning, are you a good policeman or are you a bad one type of thing? And same thing with, a priest, you are a public figure, you represent the church. And yet some guys have not represented Christ as, as a priest. So yeah, it hurts and it's not easy to deal with. Uh, but I think it's a invitation for us to live our priestly commitment with even more conviction that this is what Christ has called us to do and who He's called us to become.